Today we talk about the exciting topic of how to achieve MISRA C compliance in model-based development. Hello and welcome to another dSPACE Learning Bits. I'm your host, Mike Newmeyer. Today I'm speaking with Felix Engel, Product Manager for TargetLink at dSPACE, and Simon Rösel, Software Engineer and Consultant at Model Engineering Solutions. Hi, Felix. Hi, Simon, and welcome to dSPACE Learning Bits.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for inviting me to this dSPACE Learning Bit.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. So, Felix, my first question is for you. Now, what is MISRA C?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me answer that with it's important first and foremost. It's important because it's probably the best set of C coding guidelines if you want to target embedded systems on the market. And it comes with a complete set of also rules and recommendations on how to best apply those coding guidelines to your specific project, because it's a project-specific set of rules.
And how should we be applying it?
It's probably best to take note of language features in C that made coding guidelines necessary. So C is, of course, it's a very old language which runs close to the hardware. And so it has a couple of constructs that are kind of maybe difficult or even dangerous to use if you don't look at them well. Maybe let me take an example. There is a thing called usual arithmetic conversions, which means if you mix in an operation like an addition and signed and unsigned integer, then it can quickly happen that the signedness gets lost. So instead of calculating 1 plus minus 2, which would be minus 1, you end up calculating 1 plus a very large number, which is another very large number. And that will, of course, wreak havoc on any control system. And so to avoid doing those things accidentally, you have MISRA C. If you follow those guidelines, you are very unlikely to be bitten by those things.
Very interesting. So, Felix, what are the challenges to achieve MISRA C compliant autocode in the MBD context?
That's a very good question. And I think there are two major things, two very different things. First of all, there's lots and lots of MISRA rules, which, as I've said, have been targeted towards a human programmer to avoid mistakes by overlooking. And the code generator won't overlook things. So you probably give away performance if you just follow all the rules that MISRA C requires, because the code generator won't make a mistake by accident. There might be a bug, but then it will always make the mistake. But in general, if you take away the bugs, it will always generate the same code and it won't overlook some specific situation of usual arithmetic conversion, for example. So that's one thing, taking a good selection of the guidelines to follow versus the MISRA C guidelines that you decide are out of scope for your project. The second thing is, of course, MISRA C guidelines, but you usually don't work in the C code with an autocode generator. You generate the code and you work in the model. So you somehow need to bridge this gap between the model and the code and shift lots of your quality to the model.
Oh, thank you, Felix. This question is for Simon. How might we achieve MISRA C compliance in the context of automatic code generation with TargetLink?
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for this important question, because this is an integral part of the question on how to deal with automatic code generation and model-based development and MISRA C compliance. So I would answer very shortly that somehow you have to transfer the compliance of the MISRA C rules on the code level to the modeling level. And to achieve this, a necessary prerequisite is, of course, to apply those constraints or best practices at the model level. in order to have a chance to achieve MISRA C at the code level. And those modeling guidelines, they are available as industry standards, focusing on similar issues on the model level, which we are used to from the MISRA C guidelines. For instance, the avoidance of error-prone patterns or general robustness questions, for instance, to prevent arithmetic exceptions. And this is now being placed as a constraint on the model level. And as such, you can achieve MISRA C compliance at the code level using an automatic code generator like TargetLink. And if you use such an automatic code generator, one more important point that additionally to focusing on, let's say, classic coding guidelines already on the model level, you can directly apply modeling guidelines to ensure certain configuration settings that are important for the code generation process. And for instance, to directly ensure that the appropriate TargetLink code generator options are set or selected to comply later on with MISRA C rules. Now, I would say, as Felix said, while some of the MISRA C rules do not directly apply in the context of auto-generated code, for the vast majority of the MISRA C rules on the code level, it is sufficient to comply to respective guidelines at model level.
Thanks, Simon. So how can we ensure in practice that models fulfill the necessary requirements?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Again, very good question. So I would say today's complexity of software components easily account for multiple hundreds or thousands of findings, so guideline violations on the model level, if you apply it there. Hence, for practical purposes, to fix all these findings or even to identify them on a manual basis is no option due to this tremendous effort the approach would entail. Therefore, you need a static model test tool like the MES Model Examiner, short MXM, which is essential in model-based development with automated code generation to ease your life in modeling and generating autocode and to improve your models as, let's say, effortless as possible.
Great information, Simon. Can you describe how MXAM contributes to achieving MISRA C compliance?
I would say MXM is a widely used tool in the automotive industry. On one hand, automatically checks your models for guideline violations for a wide range of standard documents, including the MISRA autocode standard for simulating state flow, but also code generator specific modeling guidelines like the dSPACE modeling guideline documents. Now, to ease your work to achieve MISRA C compliance at code level, MXM supports you to improve your models accordingly. For instance, if you look at the MISRA C rule 14.4, which requires controlling expressions in if statements to be of Boolean type, then to ensure this property in the generated code, if you use TargetLink, for instance, you are offered a suitable code generator options that ensures that this MISRA C rule of 14.4 is really fulfilled. Now, if you use MXM and if you know that TargetLink offers this option, you can use the according guideline on the model level to make sure that this configuration option is properly set in TargetLink, and if necessarily, it can be fixed to the desired value also by MXM. So in a nutshell, using MXM strongly supports an integrated workflow of adapting your models in such a way that MISRA C compliance of the code generated by TargetLink can be ensured.
Thank you very much, Felix and Simon, for speaking with me today and answering some important questions on this topic. For all of you watching, please feel free to visit our website at www.dspace.com or model-engineers.com and submit any questions or topics that interest you. Have a great day, everyone.
dSPACE, your partner in simulation and validation.